going on, everyone? This is Trevor here for RSG, and you know what we're taking a look at today? We're taking a look at the Fractal Design Define R4. And I know this case is a little bit on the older side, but it's still a relevant case today, and still one heck of a case. So if you want to see what I have to say about it and what I think about it, well, you know what you need to do? You need to stick around. This video by saying thank you to Fractal Design and Fractal Josh for sending this unit over to me for me to check out. But just because they sent it over does not mean that I am not going to give it my review, as I always do with all of the products I check out on here. So, getting right into the case as it starts off, let's move this for a second. We have the side panel that just fell off because I didn't put it on correctly, so we can put that back on. Let's open up the front of this case to reveal our first problem, the fact that it only opens up to the left. So since it only opens up to the left, it kind of poses a little bit of an issue for someone with the computer on the right like me. You have to move around a little bit to be able to see what's there. But anyways, maybe you have a screen which could look cool, and it's kind of cool having the door open, boom, there's a screen. But maybe you have those unsightly other drives like those old CD drives and you don't really want to see them. Well, the door is really nice for that. But you know what else it's nice for? The sound blocking foam that's on the front, so we can keep the sound out, because this is a silent build and it gets its air not from the front but from the sides. It's going to get it right from these sides, you'll see up in the corner, and that is quite a big air channel, believe it or not, to get all the air through. So getting back into the front here, we have our two 5 1/4 bays, and you could just take them out with your thumb with a little latch right on the end here, and to put them back in, you're just gonna line it back up kind of with it, and sometimes it goes in with these, sometimes not, but there it goes, no problem. And then if you want to get to the fan filters and the fans, you just click the two spots here, so you have two spots for your fingers to push in, and click, it comes out. Now we have our two up to 140 millimeter fans, so you could have two 140 millimeter fans or 220 millimeter fans up in the front here. To mount a 120 millimeter fan, though, you would need to remove the dust filter, which is a great feature, and you will need to use the mounting holes, which they also have for the 140, but I don't know why you do that, because it is toolless. It is toolless for the 140, just not the 120. So that is a great thing to have. I love toolless things, because who likes to actually need to go and get the toolbox for minor changes? Now, to put this back in, you could just simply click it in like it was. I want to point out, some people have mentioned that you may be able to fit a 240 millimeter radiator in here, but I don't really see how exactly. I wouldn't exactly try that. Where I know I've seen one work is the top of the case, the front of the case. Maybe if you can somehow fit it in here, but it's not going to have a very effective pull through. It's going to have more like passive cooling at that point, because if you found a way to mount it in here, then it's going to rely on whatever fans you have to suck air out the other way. So I don't know if you want to really try that. I wouldn't suggest trying any kind of radiator here unless it was maybe a 140 millimeter radiator, or 120, because you can take the middle drive cage out and maybe essentially mount one right back there with maybe even a push-pull configuration. But anything bigger than that, I would not try at all. So let's put this back in. Let's just click that. Now I don't have any radiators to test out, or of course I would have, but that would be something in the future that would be nice to have, so I could test that. Don't forget we have the fan controller up here, which if you choose to do that, I have it through my motherboard. This way my motherboard can control the fan speeds as it needs. But you do have a fan controller that you can choose to use if need be. Now what we need to check out now is the front panel.
Here we have our microphone input, our headphone jack, our reset button, which is nice and clicky. Then we have our power button here, which is illuminated around with blue and down there, and it's a soft click. We have our two USB 3.0 ports and our two USB 2.0 ports. Getting into the top of the case, we have two vents that can take up to 140 millimeter fan each, and then we have the silencer block here, which is basically a piece of plastic with screw holes that holds a glued on piece of silencing foam, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see, it's kind of haphazardly threw on there, and even one of the screws chewed it up, but who cares, because it's out of sight, out of mind. You're just going to either have them screwed in or replace them with fans, or maybe even a radiator if you can get enough clearance between your motherboard for whatever configuration you decide to do. But I think it's time to look into the back of the case. Real quick, we have our power supply slot. We have our 8 expansion bays that we even have one on the side if you want to show off your GPU. Our included 140mm fan, and also none of these stupid grommet holes for outer water cooling. Taking a quick look at the accessory box before we get back into the case. We have all the things you would come to expect, which is like zip ties, which I wish they would include more. You have the standoffs, the motherboard tray screws, the PSU screws, a bunch of thumb screws, anti-vibration screws, so you got everything you could possibly need in this little accessory box to complete your nice computer build.
Let's get into these side panels first before we get to the inside of the computer, inside of the case. So, when we talk about the side panels, they have the thumb screws that completely come out, not the ones that just hang out when they're not in use. But one thing I will say is all the screws and the threads and everything that I've dealt with on this case were very smooth. You did not think you were going to cross thread anything, and that's a big plus for me because I've had more expensive cases that you really felt like you were going to destroy every screw that you put in. But now we take off the side panel, so we've taken out the thumb screws, take it off, and it just drops down. Not my favorite kind of style. I'm more of a fan like Cooler Master did, where it kind of hangs off like this, and then as you need, you pull it back, it'll hang off like this, and then you need it as you take it out like that. I've seen other ones where they have like a threshold. Once they're out so much, then you can pull them away. But this just seems to drop off, and I kind of want more manufacturers to actually look into ways to not really just have it drop off like that. It'd be really nice to be able to gracefully remove whatever side panel you have. Now, these side panels are no joke when it comes to how strong they are, so I don't really have to worry about them flexing like you would on the other side when it comes to wire or cable management, because sometimes when you have a bulk of wires, I've even bent the case sides before by having too much bulk going on with the wires, and you're just shoving it on trying to get it there, and this is no problem at all. Now, the other thing I've worried about is the tabs on cheaper ones that come off like this. On here, you'll be glad to know that all the tabs are thick as heck and all quality machining. You could basically WWE someone with these side panels because they are really thick and high quality, and that goes to the tabs and everything. Another thing we want to point out, we have the sound dampening going around here, cutting off, of course, at the side window, but on the other side, we have it fully covering the whole thing. So you get the sound dampening on the front with the foam, you get it on the sides here. So you should have a really silent build, and you even have it on the top covers. So really silent build is what it is, because that really gets achieved with the fans that it includes, which let's get into that with the inside of the case. Right on to the inside, we have our drive trays all here in our drive cages, but this is the only removable drive cage, which I usually do. Now you could take that out just by using thumb screws here, just take those off, which I've already done, and slide it on out, and there you go. Leaving you tons of room for a bigger GPU if you needed. This is a GTX 674 gigabyte from ASUS, so that's already still has enough clearance even without taking the drive cage out. Now you can't remove this other drive cage, and here's another thing I want to talk about. You can't remove these either, but I also want to point out that they are not toolless. Now I have put in a couple drives to see if they were toolless, and they were not. They fit in a little snug. Maybe if you're not going to move it and you're going to lightly tap the button to open up your CD drive, it shouldn't be a problem. But I haven't dealt with a non-toolless design for those drives, and I can't even tell you how long. So I was kind of shocked to see that. But once you put them in, they give you the screws. Once you put them in, I guess you really don't have to deal with it, right? So, I mean, it's not a big deal. Now, as I remove the drive cage to let the fan in here, they only give you 2 fans, so you have the 1 fan coming in and the 1 fan pulling out, and that'll give a nice cross flow. So that's real nice there. You have all of your expansion based slots as I showed on the back, and are side mounted if we want to do that GPU where it's like, hey, look who's the king of the pack. Well, then you could do that side mounted GPU here, which is really cool. I like that idea because they took away that whole stupid grommeting kind of thing that they used to do on all the cases, and still some cases have it, and it's like, who has the external water? Maybe I'm just crazy and I just don't see it much, but who still has the external water cooling like that? So as far as working on the inside, we have the grommets that run up that are absolutely awesome to run the wires through, and we have the two grommets up here that are small, easy to run the CPU cable on this side, but they give you this one over here, which is great. Not all cases do that. A lot of cases actually don't do that. And having that space up here is real nice if you wanted to mount that 240mm radiator up here and throw the fans a little offset, because it, you know, depending on your motherboard clearance, I've seen them fit in here with a push-pull configuration. So that's really awesome to be able to fit your cables right through that little grommet up at the top. And then also when you're putting in your motherboard, putting in all the standoffs, they also have all the markings with A or M depending on what you're going to use for a motherboard. So as far as the inside goes, it's real easy to work with. There's tons of room. I mean, this is a gigantic cooler and it's still got quite a bit of space between. It's bigger than the width of my thumb to get more cooler action going on if you so needed it, because there's just tons of room in here, and you gotta love that. You gotta love having extra room. And don't forget the 120 or 140mm fan mount that you can have at the bottom that is covered by a dust filter that we'll get into very shortly. I just quickly wanted to jump into the wire management side. As you can see, I was able to fit a fully non-modular power supply with the wires stuffed everywhere, and there's a nice CPU cutout on the motherboard tray, but they made that bigger on the R5. But the thing I want to talk to you about real quick is the SSD mounts right here. Okay, the problem with them is that in order to mount your SSD, you have to do it before the motherboard is in, or remove the motherboard to do so afterwards, which is just crazy. They did fix that on the R5 with a really cool innovative way that other companies have also used in that sense too, and it looks way better. But on this, I will say, just use the regular drive trays to save yourself the hassle. But let's get back into the rest of the case. Well, let's take a quick sidestep into the drive trays. The drive trays here are my favorite, and in my opinion, the best drive trays on the market. Starting out with these drive trays, I don't have to worry like my plastic crappy ones on my more expensive cases that when you try to put some cables in, they push out. These, you could push on as hard as you want and the tray is not gonna pop out because there's no flex to them like that, because they are a full metal construction. And when you pop them in, they give a nice satisfying click right on in there. But the full metal construction does come with its flaws. So we look at the fact that it does not have a toolless design, really. Not having a toolless design can be a little problematic to some people if you tend to swap out a lot of drives. If you're not really going to swap them out a lot, who cares? You know, you put them in and that's it. But these thick rubber grommets make sure that if you have a moving drive, like a spinning hard drive, that the vibrations will be kept to a minimum, keeping with the awesome silent build. These are not flimsy either, as you will need to really flex hard if you wanted to bend the living heck out of these. For what reason, I have no idea. I even have a special video coming up to see how much these can really withstand, which Fractal doesn't even know about that video, but we're gonna have some fun with these all metal drive trays. But that really sums it up for the drive trays. I love these. You can't get better quality than this, especially for your price. Even though they're not toolless, I will forego having the toolless for as good quality as these are. Back into the case. This is gonna just be a quick segment right here down at the bottom. I absolutely love the feet right here. Very high quality, thick rubber, not just stuck on like with adhesive. This is like screwed on, really good. I love this, everything about it. Right here we have our long dust filter to cover that 120, 140mm fan if you wanted to right here, but also our power supply. Boom, pulls right out and right back in. There we go. And if you want right on the front here, this is how you're gonna pop off. There's a little handle right here to pop off the front bezel if you wanted to. Remember, there's cables up here. They're kind of on the tight side, so I really don't suggest you do it. There's really no reason to. That's just what I have to say about the bottom of the case. Let's get into the final thoughts. I present to you all the V8 Phantom with its elegant looks and its powerful internals and its rigid, tough body, like those old cars had back in the day where you could hit a tree and the tree might be more hurt than the car sometimes. Well, that's probably not true, but you get the idea. So my final thoughts about this case is I love the sheer look and elegance of the case, the high airflow that I get, and keeping that silent aspect because of those nice fans that they give. Now I wish they would have given us 2 fans in the front, but they only gave us 1. But it pulls in tons of air and pushes out tons of air from the back with the ones that they gave, because they are really high quality, but they keep that low sound even though they push that much air through. So you gotta love that. As far as the radiator support side, it's not the greatest on that, and they fixed that in the R5. But if you're going to do air cooling, there's tons of room in the compartment for wire management and for all your components in here. I love the fact that they got rid of those stupid grommets on the side, and now you just have this side-mounted GPU look, so you can have a GPU be like, yeah, that's right, I'm the king of the crop. So, anyways, that is my favorite parts about this case. The bad sides about it, like I've said throughout the thing, are fixed in the R5, except for the power supply shroud. There is no power supply shroud in the R5 either. And I would like if companies, just in general, would give me the option to buy a power supply shroud like after, and I could throw that on and maybe bolt it in somehow. That would be kind of a cool idea for people who want it and don't want it. They could just buy it as a separate piece. So that would be something cool. But other than that, I really have nothing bad I can really say about this. So tell me what you think down in the comments below. If you like this video, hit like. If you dislike it, you can smash that dislike button. Maybe tell me why below as well. And then also you can follow me at Twitter at ReadySetGame87, and you can also subscribe down there if you haven't hit that subscribe button. But for all those that are going to keep watching my videos, I'll see you next time.